in the music I create. You're gonna hear about my experiences, my traumas, my burdens.
Music opened the doors, but what people don't really know is that faith is what kept me going.
When I heard Eugy, I'd only heard the hymn, and I love the way you combined the two. So I said, oh my God. I don't want you to think off the back, it's a praise song. It's about God, because when I was trying to get closer to God, that's not what drew me in.
As much as my music is Christian, I still be real. I tell them I was in the club. Don't condemn yourself. There is hope for everybody, so just be real.
All right, good times. We're warm already. I think it's only right if we address this. We're in the church. The topic is trying to explore if there is a relationship between that musical journey that all of us are on and just, I guess, understanding where does faith come in? Like, what does hip-hop look like today?
I feel like today, I feel like people are becoming more aware, more awake. I don't think you can fool people with what would have fooled people back then. That's just my opinion. Which is why I feel like the likes of ourselves, people are listening more and more to us, because I think people want positivity now. I think we've all gone through the rough. We've gone through the stage where we all had our dark moments, and we've been through what we've been through. But I think the world generally wants positive now, which is why I would say Christian rap is even more on a rise now than what it's ever been. Because for me, I never, ever saw myself making Christian music. My aunties, my mum and dad, everyone used to tell me, yo, Kofi, how do you make, sing about God, sing about God. I look at my auntie like, auntie, there's no bread in that, do you understand? But I'll tell you what the Lord has done for me in the last year and a half. If somebody had told me that this was possible, I would have told you it was lying to me, do you understand? So I feel like everybody in the world is tired, is drained. Do you understand? Everyone's tired and drained. I genuinely get that feeling from anybody. And I feel like now the world wants goodness. Everyone wants positivity. It's like we've been stuck in this cycle of negativity and darkness for a long time. So I feel like right now, which is why, and I'm not dissing, I respect both Drake and Kendrick.
Okay. Oh, God. Careful now.
And this is, I respect them both.
Yeah, I hate you.
The same amount. I don't listen to either of them that much, but I respect both of them. But I feel like you see what the world is kind of navigating towards, if we're being fair. It's more towards Kendrick at this point. Yeah. And I feel like it's because his posture's a little bit more on the positive. It's more not...
I mean, it's a vicious cycle though, Eugy, man, because I hear you, but I feel like there's a generation of young people that they still need that same old ride out, smoke weed, enjoy life music. And I think it's always gonna be it. I think I'm at an age now where, bro, what are you saying? Like, that's what I always say.
Can I actually back Broski here, yeah? Because I'm not gonna lie, I think what it is that's connecting the people is culture.
Yeah.
Now, what I've noticed, I only noticed it until I looked at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I preyed how serious the black community in America really, really appreciated like what Kendrick done. Because
bro, we want better for ourselves now. That's what I just feel like.
Now,
but when we say we, like, I think I'm not dismissing that. I'm just acknowledging that I have the luxury to be around, you know, generation, all types of young people, and it's like, you know, there's a rise of when you think of like, you know, Leo stayed true, and there's young people now that are killing it, and it's beautiful for the scene, but it still is that same old bravado, and I think it is cleaning up a bit.
I don't think it's the same, I'll be real, bro.
It's not the same.
You know why? Because you see, like, 3, 4, 5 years ago, you would see it reflected across the board, like in the charts, on TikTok, on the socials. Now you still get, you know, those viral moments, but I don't think that the kind of negative, like the drill and that kind of stuff is taken over in the same way. I feel like, even with you, bro, like last year, one of my favourite songs was Hocus Pocus with Lil Kana, because they were saying stuff, do you know what I mean? I think across the board, people that are standing the test of time right now are people that are saying things, bro.
I think to add to it, it's the being real. So in being positive, don't lie. Like, don't try and paint yourself like
it's
a
Disney.
perfect
It ain't
person.
Disney.
That's the one thing I try to do. As much as my music is Christian, I still be real. I tell them I was in the club. I was standing on the table with Eugy hanging out my mouth.
He saw.
I was there. So it's like, let people know that don't condemn yourself. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
There is hope. There is hope for everybody, so just be real. And I think that's why maybe Christian music is doing what it's doing now, is because we're actually being real Christians. We're not sugarcoating, we're being real about the walk and what it's like.
And that's culture, man.
Yeah.
That's culture. I feel like in the generation we're in, more than ever, as we've said, we're looking out for people that are showing their true selves. They're showing the good, the bad, the ugly. They're not just magnifying one side of it for commercialism, for money. They're actually saying, no, I want to show you the whole picture. And I think that's a good place
And showing
to
the
be
whole
in.
picture also gives the most glory to God, because
right.
it shows how powerful God is.
That's true.
If you hide that stuff, then you're not giving God his full glory. So like, speak your truth so people can see how far and how powerful God is.
That was hard still.
I'm done, yeah?
For me, anyway, I feel like I make music through the experiences, or partially what I go through, or the environment around me go through, innit? And I feel like where people expect us to be gospel and preach with the way, obviously, our way of life, but we need to understand there's a lot of trauma behind our way of life, innit? And all we can do is represent that reality, but the only way we can get out is through that hope, through that faith. And this is what people don't see behind the lyrics, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So like, obviously I would, myself, sometimes, here and there, I actually do have songs that are gospel. I do have songs such as one on my project called Bible Love. Some fans tap into, but some fans may not have tapped into, because all they resonate with is the traumas and the similar pains that I've been through that they're probably going through in their own way in London. And that's what I feel like a lot of the people nowadays forget to see, innit? We're not perfect people. I wish I could be out here preaching in this manner, but like, the way of life around me has put us in a place where we're trying to fight and break out, innit? And sometimes the only way to do so is using that voice too, innit? So.
What do you think of that your fans think when they hear tracks that are more gospel influenced and they've known you through Baby Benja back and then Audio?
I didn't know that. It's real, innit? It's real. You know what, yeah? Like, I'll give you a bit of background, innit? Like, I was actually, once upon a time, a uni student, as well as also balancing, like, going back home, Hackney. That was my area, innit? So, I believe music is a mind frame, innit? Now, at that time, when I was going back and forth, as you said, gal, parties, enjoyment, a lot of that was my trajectory and lifestyle, innit? So that was reflected in the music. But as well as that, though, was the balance of the reality I was going through as well, in the areas that I was in and the people that I was growing up with, innit? So, I don't know, I feel like people do want to hear the good side as well, but what I can't ignore is that this type of music is what sells, but I personally feel like it's what people are resonating and connecting to, because this is what they're going through, you know? We see it in American culture, do you know what I'm saying? Like, people are giving accolades to Kendrick's performance and his rap because they can feel that black hardship, that trauma that we've all gone through in our different ways, but feel that in the resonation of the music, you feel, man? So, yeah, man. Obviously, at the same time as well, the person behind the music is a representation of that way out, that glory, that faith, and that also restores faith in a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not just the music. There's a package behind it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I grew up in East London, like Cannon Town, so there's obviously a rich musical heritage.
Yeah,
Grew up on like Wiley, Dizzy Rascal, Kano was close. I didn't really know that you could put faith in music like that until my youth leader started showing me people like Lecrae and The Truth and all those kind of artists. And I thought, do you know what, like, I'm not bad, innit? Like, I was never on road, I was always like around it, but that was never me. And that style of music, talking about more uplifting things, came more naturally to me. Started doing it, seeing that there was a need for it, and it helped people, and I love that, you get me? But then, and also at the same time, you've got like Jesus Walks by Kanye West coming out, and then you realise how well it's connecting. So I felt like I had a role to play. But then my real life, where I'm struggling with like insecurities, identity, chasing gal, all that kind of stuff.
Naturally.
And what the Christian life requires of me, that was like tough for me, do you know what I mean? And it was like two different paths, so it's hard because I think like hip hop, rap music is struggle and storytelling, Then in the Bible, it's the same thing, storytelling and struggle. But something about Western Christian culture screams you have to be perfect and you can't work this stuff out as you go along. And I always struggled with that, man.
I guess that's the type of music, I don't know, like, that I was listening to. When I thought of church music, it was, you know, organs, gospel, Tasha Cobbs, like. But then I remember the first time seeing your behind bars and you were the only person in my periphery that I knew carried something that I resonated with. But I remember thinking like, right, is this allowed in that? Like, what's it? You get me? Like, I mean, like, just putting that out there to the room, like, for you lot. No, facts. So was it allowed? Like, I don't know, like, the divide that I was talking about, like, you think there's a balance?
No, I said he found it. He was one of the first people that I saw for me, I was like, raw, like I can relate with this. Like this is not somebody who's been forced or like, yo, make it sound like this, make it sound so great so that people don't judge you. Like he was really real with what he was doing. And I knew him at uni.
Yeah.
So he was somebody that really inspired me in university. Yeah, he really inspired me.
Offline,
for real.
You know what's interesting though? I think it's just in the public space, we don't think it should be a thing. But when I'm having conversations with people behind the scenes, like rappers, like Gets and all these people, bare people grew up in church. So it's not strange, it's not unique, you get me?
So where does that perception come from then? Like, to the people that think it's not allowed, like, is Christianity cultural when it comes to rap music?
I feel like majority of the rappers that have like crossed over and done like exploits haven't focused on those kind of topics, which is why you probably question, and many people question, is it allowed? Is it cool? Will people resonate? Will the masses resonate? I feel like obviously now a lot more people are bold about their faith. So more people are listening to it, more people are clocked in. But back then, it was only like yourself and maybe a handful of other people who were really doing it. And even with that, the people who were inspired weren't ready to actually be as bold because they knew that they weren't actually serious about their walk behind doors, do you know what I mean? Because it's like, if I go now and I start talking about God and I'm with next gal and I'm in a club and I'm doing the most, I'm gonna get checked and people are gonna be like watching me. So I think that's another thing. I think it's also linked back to how serious were people about their walk with God. So then that's why they were like, maybe not. Maybe let me not be bold and loud about this God thing so that no one can check me if I fall off.
I think it's important. Let's define rap then, like as an actual genre. What is included when we think of it? Because obviously everyone's actually mentioned that we're talking about sex, money, drugs. Like that's one theme that we've all seen when we thought about rap. But I think it's also safe to say that you do hear messages about hope and like and justice, and I think that is also involved. I don't know if you guys would agree. And how in our periphery, in where we've been raised, how we've been growing up, like how do we distinguish between those two things, or do we call them all one? What is rap? How would you describe it?
I think hip hop started off as a response to social issues and economic issues and life issues. Like Queen Latifah, UNITY, that's a response to how women have been treated. MC Light did a track called Paper Thin, and in her lyrics, she's talking about how she realizes how important it is. The person that you're with, your life partner is important.
It's good,
And one of her last lyrics in the track is something about she ain't gonna kiss any man until like the 6th, 7th, 8th date that they have. So that kind of stuff, you ain't hearing that now. People are doing all sorts in 1 hour of meetings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, do you know what I mean?
So we're throwing it back, like, that's what,
I'm looking at
90s?
Yeah.
So even from then, there was a bit
From
of
there,
like,
there was, where it wasn't necessarily pinpointed and fixated on God, but it was, I guess, what you call conscious rap, where they were talking about being better people or recognising certain things in society that weren't really aligned with a good ethic or moral code. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the first rappers I listened to when I was coming into my relationship with Christ was Wande, obviously now known as Anike. And her songs were just jumping. I was like, who's this? Like, this is lit. I ain't never heard no girl on a rap song that ain't naked, that ain't talking about rubbish.
Yeah, true.
And it's lit. Like, the replay value was crazy, still crazy. Shout out to Anike, she's amazing. But yeah, that's rare. And again, she drew me in, not with necessarily Bible verses or hymn vibes or anything that reminded me of the church. She was just herself. And I think, go back to what T was saying about, it's just an expression. Like, your music is an expression of your experience and what you're going through. And maybe in her mind, yeah, I'm walking with God, but I'm turned. And I still want to showcase that and reel people in.
Do you think there's a fine line at all? Or...
I don't think, personally, I don't think there is. I think you know where you're coming from, you know what you're trying to do.
I got a question for you because you've had like a drastic change. You was in the clubs, shocky. You know what I mean?
These references.
I know. I'm really a fan of you guys. But now you've gone the other way.
The complete opposite.
So do you see it as you have to be in this box over here, or you can be in this box over here and there's no linking up the two?
For me, I'm still learning. That's how I see it. I don't think there's a set, I can't tell you what you're doing is right or what is wrong, because I'm not Jesus, I'm not God. That's the bottom line of all of it. So the first thing I had to remove out of everything was judging. I was not perfect. So it's just for me, where I am in my walk with Christ, it's like, I feel like I'm at the stage where what I want to do is just tell people about Jesus. Do you understand? So that's where I am in my walk. But I will never listen to someone else and be like, you shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't be doing that, because I can't talk about your walk. It's only about me. So where I am in my walk right now, I'm heavy in church, prayer meeting, I'm even leading. Intercession and all this. And I've never done that before.
Pastor
so,
Eugy.
hey, it's the Lord, you know what I mean? So for where I am, that's what, I'm only making music reflecting where I am in my walk. Who knows? I can't speak on where I'm going to be in 5 years, where the Lord's going to take me. But for me, where I am right now, I can only just be real to where, like, what I'm going through and how I'm living. So that's why it's gone from like that side to that side. But never will I don't judge. I still have love for everybody. I still see some of my guys that I just don't go club with them. I don't do none of that. But I still go be in the pits with them. Because if I remove myself, who's going to be the person that's going to bring the gospel to them? Do you understand? So my parents are very influential in my life. So I love my mum and dad to bits. I'm somebody that was blessed to have my dad really in my life. Like, my dad is the reason I probably didn't go off the rails the way I should have, because he didn't care about whether I liked him or not. He just knew he had a job to do. And so that's all he cared about, was making sure I made it out of the other end. So my dad since I've known this man, since I was born, all he's ever spoken about is God, is Jesus, is God, is Jesus. And he's probably the best human I know, in terms of his morals, his principles. He's a stand-up guy. He's sacrificed so much for me and my family. He's loved us, he's provided for us. So if there's somebody that I look at as a role model, it's my dad. Do you understand? And so for me, I take what he says as the gospel. Do you get what I'm saying? And for me, the life that they lived when we were growing up is what I saw as the ideal life. You know, when I stepped out of the house, it was a different thing, because I'd be with my brethren doing all this type of nonsense. But when I come home, it's like in my mind, I was like, I wanna grow up and be like how my dad is. Do you understand? So
that's mad healthy still. Like,
I ain't gonna lie. So I was talking to Gov earlier, I was like, I feel like God has always said to me, when I was out there doing what I was doing, what are you doing? Because I didn't put you on this earth for you to come and scatter things. So how is it that I've placed you in a good home, and then you're out there doing that? And I've always had that conviction. But I just always used to just put it to the side, like God, I'll come back. Like, let me go and do what I gotta do. Do you understand? So for me, I'm somebody that I feel like I can say I've always known better. And that's the result of my mum and dad and the influence they've had on my life. So.
Yeah, definitely. So parents was powerful.
Very. That I think they might be the most powerful. If anyone's on a walk with Christ, more times than most, I think it's come from your parents.
That's strong.
Interesting, because I had it a bit different, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, for me, I had my mum very present in my life. My father left at teenagehood. So that had a big effect on my reality outside. Now, I'm a believer that both parents in a family home will create stability. As you said, your father had a purpose, mother has a purpose. That confusion, I believe, led me astray, innit? Now, like, I don't really need to go into too much detail in it, but like, that absence in a father figure put a lot of pressures in areas where I believe and felt like I had a responsibility to be the man in the home. That's where it stems from a lot of the time, innit? Now, my faith and my religion naturally came from my mother's side. My grandmother, very religious. I'm saying, and I've had a very good connection with the females in my family. But one thing with men, I heard you say it earlier, which touched me, we're very boisterous. So naturally, religion was always instilled in me, but like, it would go through one ear than the other. But sometimes when you have, obviously I'm Ugandan, East African upbringing, and you know, with the type of family that I have, like they're very strict, but they'll also let me learn for myself, innit, type thing as well, innit? And I believe sometimes that is also the best way to humble you and make you learn for yourself, innit? And obviously, interested in your story, innit, because you was rooted from your parents, I was rooted from my own vision of life, innit? You know what I'm saying?
I think with my parents, like, they taught me, like, what we do. Like, this is what we do. As Christians, we go to church, we read the Bible, but they didn't necessarily teach me why we do it. And so a lot of my questions weren't answered. And I think, as a dad now, when my son's like, why are we going to church today? I have to, like, think. Like, why are we going to church? And I think that causes me to know why I believe what I believe. And I'm able to communicate that with him.
I feel like, I grew up obviously being influenced to go to church, like I think my home was very religious. Like I grew up with my mum, a single parent household, my dad left quite young. He was still present from a distance, but not really physically present. And I feel like my mum, her dad is a pastor. So I feel like for her, she was just following in her dad's footsteps. I don't think she was actually actively building relationship. Like I never really saw her doing a lot of things that I feel like now, as I'm building a relationship, that you would do to like try and encourage someone else to walk on that path. But what she did do, she would always tell me like, you need to speak about God in your music, you need to speak about God in your music, because I started making music in 2018 and I was in the secular space until 2022. And she was just like, why not talking about God? Why not talking about God? And I'm like, because I'm not spending time with him, so. I'm talking about why I'm spending time with him, do you know what I mean, type of thing. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I think it just, my mum would plant a seed of like, incorporate your faith into your music, like this is part of who you are. There was a period in my life where she was just like, go read the book of Esther. And I was like, okay. She's like, no, but seriously, go read the book of Esther. Like, that's who, like, I gave you that name intentionally, you know? So go read your star. That is your star. And I'm like, okay. And so I would like read up on that. And when I started doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's me, you know? I see myself in her. She's so bold, like, she saves her people. I can save my people, like, what the heck, like. And so, I think it was just seeds over time. But I think similar to what Guvna said, I think there was a lot of questions not answered. There was a lot of things that in my head I'm like, what's your thoughts on the Bible? And it's just like, oh yeah, just read your Bible. But, okay, but how do you read your Bible? Like, what does that actually even look like as someone that doesn't even, you know, really put time and effort into that relationship? So I think it was more seeds in terms of its link to my music.
So my mum and dad are 18 years apart. My mum's 18 years older than my dad.
Okay.
And when she fell pregnant, they had only known each other for like 3 months. And they are like the total opposite people. It's unbelievable. Everything they believe, their mindset's totally different. So my mum was a Seventh-day Adventist, but wasn't practicing it too tough, but she would still go to church. But her life at home was very different to how she would be in church. And then my dad was full on witchcraft, like to a level where he was trying to bring me in on that side, and my mum was trying to bring me in on her side.
Wow.
So it was difficult because I'm seeing what my dad's doing, I'm seeing what my mum's doing, and even what my mum was doing, even though she was going to church, didn't make sense to me because she wasn't how she was. I'd see her at church and I'd be like,
Who's this?
like, Mum, what are you doing? Shut up. And I'd notice then at home, totally different. So for me, I think my faith actually came from realising that both my parents didn't really know what they were doing, and I had to figure it out myself. But God was present in my life in like the weirdest ways, and I think that's because I'm an only child. So I was alone a lot of the time, and I'd always prayed that I would have a good father figure, or at least I'd feel loved. And through that prayer, I just kind of figured out Christ for myself as time went on. I feel like my music has always been just transparent, which is both sides of the coin, which is why I started off as a Christian rapper with a totally different name. I was called No Name Disciple back then. That's when I met you guys, when I was No Name Disciple. And then because my life started to shift, I changed my name because I wasn't really being accepted by the gospel side as much, because I was now talking about other stuff as opposed to just Christ. So I've always been kind of, when I say both-sided, I'm still very fixated in Christ, but I'm very real and talking about my experiences with whatever it may be. Is that like duality, I suppose?
So upon reflection now, like looking back and just that journey, do you still feel there is a split, or do you feel like it's just more of an external acceptance? And
I think it's an external acceptance. Like, I'm not split with my decision on Christ. That's just 100%. But in how I maybe communicate it, it's different. I'll communicate it from a different angle maybe to how I would have when I was quote-unquote a gospel rapper.
I feel like there definitely is a pressure and expectation for us to talk about topics like money, sex, and obviously bettering the people, innit? Like, obviously that's what the wider public would expect people in our positions to do, innit? But I feel like the duality is like we're battling our alter ego. Being in this position, I feel like we know what's right, but we know what sells. We're stuck in a position where like we know it's wrong, but man still got to do to provide. Sounds weird because it's like, wait, it's mixed reasons, but like, yeah, that pressure's a battle that obviously us artists do battle with, innit? I can only be honest with you all, innit? But like, it's definitely something that I feel like the only way people can feel it is seeing behind the music.
I think the only difficulty with that is like, you know, there's a verse that says, what does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose their soul? And I think, especially coming from the secular space as well, like, when I first came into the scene, like, I was already torn with Burna Boy. I already had a track with Heady One. So in my head, I'm like, I'm doing what everyone's saying that sells. But going back to what you said earlier on and what you said about peace, like, the peace that surpasses all understanding was not present at all. And when I decided that I was gonna be intentional about building that relationship, I had to ask myself, if I'm being sent out into the world to be a light, how can I be a light if I'm mixing that with darkness? You know? And I think when you're touching on those topics, it's not a bad, like, let me be real, like, you're influencing something, innit? At the end of the day, it's like, you know, they say influencers. As artists, we are indirectly influencers. We're influencing a lifestyle, we're influencing a way of life, of thinking. And I think when we do touch on those topics that sell, going back to the verse, it's like, do we want to lose our souls to gain worldly treasures? Which, by the way, you can still gain in abundance if you don't. But are you willing to take that risk for God? And I feel like with me, when I made that transition, it was hard. I was battling. I remember talking to one of my boys and I was like, bro, like, I've already made like noise in the space. Like, what the heck? What am I doing? Like, there's bags that are there. Like, I literally had just gone on tour. I think I opened up for Ira. I was on tour. I was in Rome. I was like, what am I doing? But there's opportunities and doors that opened that I was begging God to open for years that it only unlocked when I was obedient. And I really sacrificed those riches of the world. And also I had to ask God to change the desires of my heart. Like, I want my desires to align with your will for my life. And I think when you're really intentional about doing that, you won't want to do the things that you think is what is actually opening doors. Because the reality is it's God that's opening the doors.